Welcome back to the Siloam Plus podcast. My name is Josh Watford, and sitting across from me is
John Nicholson.
And on the other side of me, we may have to call this one Siloam Plus Plus.
I think
podcast.
So. I think that's a great
because
one.
We have a prestigious guest among us.
No doubt.
Dr. Mark II.
Yes.
He's just laughing. He knows how prestigious he is, and we're for real though. We are thankful that you're here, leading our winter Bible study for us. And I have heard multiple compliments from many different people.
Oh yeah.
And there's been more and more people every night. I don't know if you noticed that. But word's getting around like, hey, Dr. Two's teaching on Joshua, so we got to go see what he says.
Yeah, we had people drive in from out of town last night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here. So
y'all are too kind.
Quality speaks. I mean, it just kind of shows for itself, you know. So that's a good thing. But no, it is an honor to have you back with us, Dr. Two, and just so grateful for your friendship through all the years and for how you have mentored me. As I have shared, you were my great professor in my seminary years, and I'm grateful for your investment in my life. And so it's an humbling thing to have you come back around and for me to be able to sit at your feet again. I'm really grateful.
Well, thank you. It's my privilege and my honor to be back here at Siloam. We spent 21 years here.
Wow.
And loved every minute of it. It's a great place.
Well, the people love you. There's no doubt of that, and that has shown through the times that folks are wanting to visit with you and show up and be here. But give us, for those that haven't been here for Winter Bible Study, or for those who may not have been here in those past 21 years, it came over a couple of periods of time.
It did, yes.
But give us just kind of the brief bio, family, and where you've been and what you do.
I grew up in Birmingham, raised there, and I went to school there, and then when I completed my doctoral, when I was about to complete my doctoral degree at New Orleans Seminary, came to Judson College in 1987 as a religion faculty. I was the chairman of the religion department. Because I was the only person in the department, so I was the chairman.
Chair by default.
That's right. So we started there. I moved in with to assist Dr. David Potts in a number of administrative roles over my time. Left twice. Went to Missouri one time, and then came back. And then again, each time spending about 9 years. In those first two tours, and then left and was 12 years at Howard Payne University in Brownwood, Texas. Again, one of our Baptist schools there, and came back in our third tour as the president here, and had the distinct responsibility, I guess, of being involved when we had to take the vote to close school. It was a sad day in many, many ways, but we believed we did what we were supposed to do at that time.
Right.
So since then, Ann and I have semi-retired in Millbrook, Alabama. I am still teaching for New Orleans Seminary. I am very honored to do that, and honored to be back here after 21 years with folks. The church has continued to grow and change. New faces that I do not know, but have enjoyed meeting, and a few that are still around that
know your stories,
that know some of the people I know, and so it's been great to reunite in that regard.
Well, that's great. That's great. I hope that you have felt a warm welcome.
Absolutely.
And
we tell everybody that come through here, because Judson girls, MMI grads, we tell them once you get Marion mud on your shoes, you can't knock it off.
That's right.
It always sticks, and that's literally and metaphorically.
Yes, so true. Yes. Billy Cox used to say of the soil in the Black Belt, if you stick with it in the summer, it'll stick with you in the winter.
That's right.
That's pretty good. I have to remember that. I hadn't heard that. That's fantastic. Well, you've been taking us through Joshua.
Yes.
And it has been an enjoyable. Right, you have offered some insights that I was sharing with one of my friends. I've been studying the Bible pretty diligently now for about 40 years. And just things like, how did I not ever see that before? And so thank you for your preparation ahead of this. But I know that also you've got a few more years ahead of me studying the Bible that you filed away some of those things as well. Yeah. But in your estimation, how does Joshua, where does it fit in this larger Scripture story, and what are we supposed to be looking for with this?
Sure, Joshua hits at a very pivotal point in the historical array, I guess you'd say, of the people of Israel, of the Hebrew nation. There's no greater theological point for Judaism than the Exodus, which immediately preceded Joshua. God's hand in the Exodus was their version of our resurrection day, our Calvary. It is the pivotal point for their understanding of themselves as a people. Mm-hmm. And so, falling as it does immediately on the heels of the Exodus, granted immediate, 40 years later, right. But sequentially next, it occupies a very important time. We've tried to unearth some of the unique elements of their belief. I mean, you can look at any period of time and you can find that the Jewish people believe God. Okay, but if you were to look at the entire flow through the Old Testament, I know it's a long period, as one life, you might well see a period of adolescence, a period of teenage rebellion, a period of midlife crisis. Even there is a flow to that. It's not directly analogous, obviously, but the thing we will come to tonight with Jericho, there is a different feeling about their obedience even. Prior to the Battle of Ai, where they were defeated, there's a different feeling of their obedience in the Jericho battle than there is in the second Ai battle. There's just a different tension there because they understand the frailty they have when they don't obey, and so there is a growing moment. I think it is a transitional period in the flow of things. There's several of those, and several key transitional figures. The period of the judges will come right after Joshua's occupation of the land, and each of those individual judges, without an overall national context, operated as key figures for the people. That's going to become more unified in persons like Eli, and then certainly in the person of Samuel, who becomes a very unique role of being a halfway house between the priest and the prophet. Mm-hmm. And so then after Samuel, when you move into the monarchy period, again, everything shifts. So there's a number of, I think, of key transition points, and Joshua certainly is one of those.
That's great.
Yeah. When I'm thinking about Joshua, you think about the Abrahamic promise, mm-hmm. right? Like, God promises Abraham 3 things. I will give you children. That's been fulfilled. He's got a whole bunch of kids. And yet they still don't have land. And so there's this question at the beginning of Joshua: will it happen? Will God keep His promise? And He does. Mm-hmm. And He does, because the previous generation didn't keep their promise to God. They said, "We'll serve you." They did not. This generation said they would, and they did. And you see that all the way to the end. I know we'll probably talk about this on Wednesday, but in Joshua 24, they're like, "We'll serve Him." And Joshua's like, no, you won't.
No, you won't.
And they're like, yes, we will. And he's like, all right, whatever, if you want to. And then you see, like, they served the Lord for the rest of Joshua's life and the rest of the elders. But once they died, and you turn over to Judges, and it says, after Joshua died, here's where everything went wrong. And it just took one generation.
Yeah, there arose a generation that did not know the Lord.
Yep, that was it.
Stunning.
And so in this grand story, it's, I see it as one of the answers to the Abrahamic covenant and how God keeps His faithfulness even when the people of Israel were faithless in the grander sense, even though this one particular generation were faithful. But yeah, it's just, man, God's good.
Yes.
When you read Joshua and you come out thinking anything else other than God is good, then you go back and start at the first and read it again. Because, you'll probably get into this, and this is going to come out later after this, but every Bible class I've taught, when we get to Joshua, I think is it 12 that starts like the land deeds and stuff. Once you get to that, you're like, what is happening?
Right.
And I'm like, all of us reading this, it's like reading a map that has no pictures.
Right.
And that's basically what it is. And I tell everybody, I'm like, it's the same thing when it comes to the genealogies. Genealogy is about the Abrahamic promise of giving him children. Mm-hmm. The land deed is about giving the land. And this is just God putting His stamp on it, saying, done. I did it. I told you I would do it, and I did it. And for us, so far removed, it's not quite as intriguing as those that were going through it and could actually go down by so-and-so's pond and realize, oh yeah, God promised us this. But yeah, so that's, I love your answer as well, Dr. T. But yeah, that's...
How about, is there a bridge to the New Testament from Joshua? Throw you on the spot there.
Interesting.
That's
one
okay.
does not come to mind. The imagery is certainly of the divine. It's certainly of the belief in what God is to do. And these are all things that will keep working their way through matters.
Sure.
But, I'm not... other than the Rahab reference, in both
I want to go with Rahab.
In Matthew and in Hebrews, I'm not thinking of a Joshua reference, a specific reference.
Sure.
In the New Testament, thematically, obviously, a number of things: faithfulness of God, the culpability of sinfulness. We're gonna see those things develop continual, but and that's an interesting question. So
I was just wondering in your studies how that had come along with you. But you brought up Rahab, and you did. I've got to tell you, you did a masterful job of dancing that dance last night.
Well, and I had to ask Ann on the way home. I said, "Did I cross the line?" And she said, "No, they kept it going," and I was comforted with that. But yes, Rahab was King David's great grandmother.
I think that's right.
Let's see, great grandmother, and then of course Ruth, her daughter, so Ruth is David's great. All right, so yes, not daughter, granddaughter. So right. Rahab's David's great grandmother, Ruth, rather. Boaz,
right,
is Rahab's grandson, and so the two women mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus, Rahab and one of her progenitors or relations, so she is a very interesting figure. And she's not only mentioned in the genealogy, but again referenced in the writer of the book of Hebrews. That wasn't Paul. And the
definitive statement. I like it.
He's got it figured out.
All right, good.
I don't know who wrote Hebrews. That's not what we're talking about.
It's a rabbit, though. We need to go catch it.
So yeah, the interesting thing about, I think when you read chapter 2, you quickly gloss over parts of conversations, and when you realize when you read what is said between Joshua and the spies, you recognize she had to know or believe something in order to hide them in the first place.
Right.
We're not given that part of the conversation, nor are we told that the spies laid it out for her. We're just given the passage in verse 12 that they say to her, if you don't reveal our plan. Well, that just kind of begs the question that she knows what to reveal. If she doesn't know what the plan is, why are they saying to her, if you don't reveal it? So obviously there are conversations that went on between the three of them.
Sure.
And there had to be some basis of context for that to occur. I think especially given those verses that we read, just picked out a few. Don't make agreements with these people.
What do we make of that?
Don't go into Canaan and have alliances or marriages or agreements or contracts. We can find.
Sure.
We just read a few of them, and I want to ascribe to the spies obedience to those commands, and say that there was somehow established a connection that they knew this wasn't the person we were to be worried about. There was something that gave them that confidence that, I'm trying not to say this is a person of God, but let me just generically say it that way. We do this to ourselves. After we preach or teach, we think, dadgum, I didn't say.
Right.
We realize what we missed in the, and I missed the layup in Luke chapter 4, in Jesus' first sermon, said to the people in the synagogue, were there no widows in Israel that Elisha had to go to Zarephath to find a widow to help during the days of the famine?
Right.
Were there no lepers in Syria that they had to heal Naaman, the Syrian army officer?
Right.
And obviously Jesus' passage was, yes, today you've heard the prophecy fulfilled that the poor are hearing the gospel preached. But it's bigger than that, Jesus was saying to the synagogue, that God has a people that's bigger than just you. Love you, special covenant relationship with you, but there's more to this story. The book of Jonah, no clearer mission emphasis, can you find? Go save Nineveh. Period, and he did. that's the real
willing or
willing.
Right.
Didn't really care about it, but did. You worry about a plant that you didn't grow, and you didn't plant it, you didn't grow it, you didn't kill it, but you're not concerned about a great city and many cows.
You're right.
I'm not quite sure about that part, but. So obviously, I think if we're paying attention to it and we see it, there are outsiders that we need to understand God is looking to include.
Or dare we say that there are some outsiders that are in fact insiders?
Correct. Yes. Look. We live lives sequentially, because we're linear, and that's the only thing we can be. God is outside of time, and so yesterday was today, and and so forth, and so yes, I think the expression you sometimes hear, God has always had a people, and He will. That's one of the tragedies of the church. We don't. Well, let me say that. Of the church and of us within our Christian existences, we don't stop the forward progress of the kingdom.
Right.
We can take ourselves out of the picture. We can sideline ourselves. But God's going to do His work. God's going to accomplish His purposes, and He has people. The remnant theology that we get within the prophets is broader than I think we sometimes want to discuss.
That's good.
And if we look at the flow, I mean, Abraham was an outsider at one time, until God included him, and chose a specific family.
We even go back to the Exodus, this pivotal moment in Israelite theology. We get right there in the book of Exodus, and many Egyptians went with them.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's always been, hey, look, it's not about primarily the nationality or whatnot. It's who do you serve?
Exactly.
And it was clear to the spies that Rahab believed and understood who God was.
But what do we make of the fact that she is this prostitute? I mean, this is troubling, isn't it? Not only is she a foreigner,
right,
but she is a foreigner of questionable moral character. And being generous.
And Abraham was a
liar, amongst other things.
By our standards, incestuous.
Yeah.
And essentially,
and I
his wife
can't.
out.
Let's see, what's that? Oh dear. I won't be able to pull it up. Numbers.
That's okay.
Around 13. One of the sexual promiscuity sections, where you don't uncover your father's nakedness, you don't uncover your mother's nakedness.
Right.
One of those is your sister by another, your half sister.
Right.
Is one of those. Well, now granted that law post dates Isaac and Abraham, but you still have to wonder. Polygamy was acceptable.
Yeah.
And we're going to come along, and God's going to say no. Monogamous relationships. Sorry, I could not get the word out. I was stuck on monotheism, and I knew that wasn't right. There's a funny story about that, but monogamy.
Yeah.
It's a seminary story.
Okay.
And too long for our setting here.
We'll have to have another podcast for that. We got to hear the story now.
but yes, there will be practices that we deem inappropriate because of God's continued revelation of Himself and of His standard to us, that if applied to earlier times, makes us think, no, wait a minute. I mean, same thing's true of the, quote, holy war that we see in this time and throughout the conquest, where we think, man, I mean, we talk about the word genocide today, and we think of that horrifically.
It seems like it's commanded here.
And should. But yet the context was different. It was commanded. There were times it was within Joshua itself. It was commanded for total destruction, and other times partial destruction. And part of that, I think, was, are y'all paying attention and doing what I've told you to do? I'm not going to tell you to do the same thing every time. You got to stay engaged, stay in touch. And so yeah, I don't think. I mean, Leah, not Leah. Dinah, not Jacob's, I'll say it right in a minute, one of Jacob's sons, daughter-in-law.
Tamar.
There it is.
I'm sorry. I could not get it to the
Judah
right
and
spot.
Tamar.
Judah and Tamar. Thank you for
I won't let
getting
my
me
son
right.
read that story yet.
Not yet.
It's clear. She posed as a prostitute. She sold herself to her father-in-law.
Father-in-law.
As a point. When she was obvious she was pregnant, he was ready to then follow the Levitical law to have her executed. When he said, "Hope, here are my securities," and gave the cord and the
Staff and a ring.
ring and a staff,
Yeah, it was
ring
definitely
and
a staff. I can't remember what else.
But yeah.
and so yes, things that we would consider questionable. I really think the big takeaway from all of that is they weren't perfect, and neither am I. Now, that's not a license.
Right.
But it does mean, we're depraved, and God has an answer to that.
And He can use
anybody.
I can't fathom my name being in Hebrews 11.
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like
Right.
This Joshua was standing up against Moses and all those guys, but Rahab's there,
Rahab is.
and James too. Wasn't Rahab justified by works?
That's right. I'm sorry. That's right. I forgot about James when I said that earlier.
And so that was that. If I was pinned against the wall like we just pinned him against the wall, my answer would be
You survived very well.
that she believed that God did all this stuff, but it didn't do anything until she acted on it. Right?
Yeah.
Her faith was dead until she worked.
And there's it's a dangerous path to go down, but because it's not, Paul's point in the first chapter of Romans is to prove the downward process of our depravity.
Yeah.
God gave them up, but He said, what can be known about God is evident to them. Now He was saying, and they failed. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those in for a penny, in for a pound. Okay, you said this. What can be known about God is evident. Is that a true statement? Now, I had Carlton Winberry, he's deceased now, said, is the natural revelation enough to bring a person to faith? And he said, based upon Romans 1, he has to say yes. But here's the problem. Most people need more light.
Yeah.
That's the way he said that.
I heard somebody say that it is sufficient, it's just not efficient.
Right. And so yeah, right. You have to say those things very, very carefully.
Right.
Because you don't want to give the impression of, I can approach this my way. Now you're on a different path. But the point being, have we ever heard missionary stories?
Oh, yeah.
Where people have gone into remote places and where tribal peoples, indigenous peoples, hear the gospel for the very first time and say, you're talking about my God.
Yeah.
I don't know the names. I don't know the words. I certainly don't know all the beautiful story. But that's who I have been trusting.
Right.
It's rare. You go to the exception of things and you get in trouble. But I think Rahab has to get us in that kind of thought process.
Such
somehow.
an interesting character there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, you touched on, as one of our church members posited to you, there's a whole lot of killing going on.
There is. Yeah.
And you may come to it in our conversation, but I've been itching ever since Sunday morning to hear this marvelous piece, if you've got it handy, whatever the answer to that question is.
A dear friend of mine, James Newells, pastor. Oh, you know James?
I know of him. That's right.
A professor at Baptist University of Florida.
BCF, yeah.
And I just said, James,
Josh is a BCF.
You're going to have to tell me. You're going to have to help me on this. Give me a good answer. So I'm just going to read it if you don't mind. So everybody, James Newell. The Lord's instructions to destroy everything on some occasions and not so much on others is problematic for us. These instructions were a test for the Israelites, but God wanted to see if the people would obey. Preventing evil influences was at the center of God's instruction. He did not want the Israelites to be led astray. Excuse me. He did not want the Israelites to be led astray by those that they were to displace. Israel had its own issues with idolatry. We're going to pause. Excuse me.
It's okay.
We're going to come to that in chapter 24 too. That's one of the amazements to me. Is they're still dealing with idol worship, and I want to say, man, Aiken got a bum deal on this.
Slow to learn.
So where was I? Israel had its own issues with idolatry, going as far back as Jacob and Israel, having to tell his family to get rid of their household gods when they brought them to Canaan. Another issue related to the Holy War is the concept existing from ancient times of assuring peace in the future by eliminating any future threats arising from the descendants of those conquered. Killing all the enemies precluded uprisings from occurring in the future. The question about the animals being included is a matter of testing. Fast forward to Saul's decision, beautiful illustration,
Right.
to spare the animals and King Agag when Samuel confronted him with the words, "To obey is better than to sacrifice." The issue of changing instructions is a matter of God's choice and provision, and a warning for us not to put God in a box, expecting that He will always do the same thing in every instance. That was amazing for me. Another illustration is that with Moses, one time told strike the rock, bring the water. The next time told Moses to speak to the rock, and remember how that turned out for him.
Right.
In the end, the Lord is in charge. As he said in Isaiah, my ways are not your ways. And so I appreciate James in many, many ways, appreciate him giving that statement. Again, we go to the concept of genocide, and we can quickly recognize the nefarious motives involved.
Right.
The hatred, the national issues, on and on and on, that kind of thing goes. And certainly our desire for human rights and for being, as he says in the Sermon on the Mount, peacemakers. We bristle at that. I don't think you can compare genocide in the modern world with what God told Israel to do. For one thing, God's judgment has already been apparent through the period up to now.
Right.
You've got Noah and the flood. You've got you finish that up. I mean, chapter 6, that verse it just cascades their thoughts. No, not just their thoughts, but their thoughts and their imaginations. The thoughts and the imaginations of their heart. The thoughts and imaginations of the heart were evil. Thoughts and imaginations of the heart were evil continually. I mean, it just snowballs. And God said, "There's a judgment for that." And
Enough's enough. There's a line.
And there's a line. Exactly. That's a good way to say it. We mentioned Korah's rebellion just in passing. God said, enough. There was the fiery serpents while they were wandering for 40 years. God said, there is a judgment piece to this where God says sin has its consequences, and uses Israel as that agent. That's hard for us to wrap our arms around.
Yep.
But I think it is so important because I think we make too little of the judgment of God.
Oh, correct. Definitely.
And this is a hard stop for us to say, we need to look at this.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mean to criticize a former president. One of Bush number one's statements was that we're a kindler, gentler America. Y'all remember that. It was one of his phrases. And an important phrase given where we were about some things. But when we take that kind of soft sell to our awe of God, we're just in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful with that.
No doubt.
Yeah. Man. That's all I got.
All right. Is there one final Joshua nugget
Oh, my goodness. Well,
that you need to drop on us?
I don't know how to handle the Gershomites. And isn't it the Gershomites?
Gibeonites.
Gibeonites. Sorry,
Yeah,
the Gibeonites. I don't know what I'm going to do with them still. Their deception and then their subservient role from that point forward. I'm still trying to wrap my arms around
I was
that.
rereading that again, and the phrase that caught my eye was that, but they did, speaking to the people of Israel, they did not inquire of the Lord. They didn't ask God about this.
Yep.
We got this.
Yeah.
We'll handle this our way.
So that's one issue I want to think about, and the other one I'll probably, given a context like ours, where we're known, and I can tap dance a little bit. Y'all know me and know me to revere our separation of church and state. That has been an important part of our culture and of our church.
Right.
The importance of religious liberty, and there are some safe walls there for purpose. That there are some safeguards for us. But neither can the church be silent on moral issues. And the trick is knowing kind of how to deal with that. And so when we come to the cities of refuge, given everything we're going through right now with border security nationally, I don't feel like I can just ignore that. But
Right.
I've got to be careful with it. And the theme of that, not the theme, but I think the thread that'll help us walk that finely is that yes, there's command in the Old Testament to care for, support the sojourner in your land.
Right.
There were prohibitions against using them nefariously,
Right.
even abusing them because you could. That we've got to think about. Again, you can't equate some modern things with some ancient things.
Mm-hmm.
You can draw inference from them. But two important pieces to that struck me when I was trying to work through the cities of refuge. Of course, those were the places those were the cities where the Levites didn't have any occupation of the land. They lived in the cities of refuge, and they were given the produce of the surrounding properties. And the manslayer, Old Testament law was way ahead of itself. That an accidental killing was not punished the same way, and intentional murder was. And so our difference between murder and manslaughter goes back to that. But if you were accused of if you were involved in an accidental crime, go to the cities of refuge. It's not just you're hanging on the horns of the altar, but you had a process. Without the city of refuge, they had no process.
Right.
And that process was that they could be heard. They could be, the case would be adjudicated by the laws that they had there. And it was fascinating to me, and we'll try to bring this out in the text, that it was obvious that the foreigners knew about it.
Huh.
Well, they're not the ones reading the Torah. How is it that they know about it? Well, Israel was supposed to be this kind of beacon of peace,
Mm-hmm.
and pushing out its belief in God to, again, the uninitiated, so that they do know these things. So one is, how did they know about it to go? But then number two, and this is important to me, there were laws they had to follow.
Yes.
And so I've got to do that delicately. I don't want to embroil us in a
I don't think we'll have folks
political
storming
debate.
out, but
but
it is important, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to help us bring biblical light to current events, and that's something that is necessary. Man, thank you. Final words. What you got?
No, that's it for me, man. Yeah, I'm excited. So we're recording this on day 3 of Winter Bible Study, and so we got 2 more days left, and I'm just excited to see what you bring.
We have one more day.
Well, tonight. and then tomorrow.
Tonight.
We got 2 more sessions.
Yes,
Session.
yes.
Yeah,
So we're
I'm
good.
sorry. 2 more sessions. Let me be
I'll
more
come back
precise.
Thursday. I thought that was an invitation.
Yeah. I meant 2 more sessions is what I meant. So, but yeah, Dr. Tu, thank you so much for all that you do, not only for us here in Marion, but those in New Orleans, and what you do for your family, and for what you do for the kingdom of God, because it certainly makes an impact.
Absolutely. And it's been so good to have you around.
Thank you. It's been my privilege.
Thanks for sitting down with us.
Yes, sir.
We'll see y'all next time.